Hello and welcome back to the show. So I am super excited to be joined by my guest today, Phil Brooks. Phil is a real estate investor in the multifamily space, and he has a proven track record of investing in multifamily and also helping those who want to become multifamily investors as well. And he actually acquired over 1,000 units in his first 18 months as an investor, and the journey just gets better from there. But he'll tell the story a lot better than I can. But that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today is, how to become a successful multifamily investor and especially the mindset that you need to get there. So, Phil, I'm excited to have you on the show.
Hey, Kobe, thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it. That was a great intro.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get started, would you mind just kind of sharing your story, maybe from the very beginning, as far as just how you got started in real estate, what that transition was like, and how did you get from where you started to where you are today?
Sure, I would love to. So, I like to when I give my story, I like to go to the very beginning because where I come from is nowhere in the world we thought I could buy a multifamily investment property. So usually we think we got to have millions of dollars or we need to play a sports to get the millions of dollars, right? So when I was younger, my father was on drugs. He used to have his own construction business. He used to do really, really good. So when he lost everything, he ain't know how to cope with it. He turned to drugs. So I used to be at my friend's house, and they parents sold drugs, and he used to show up and buy the drugs. So you know who I didn't want to be like? I didn't want to be the one with nothing, because all my friends, they had a lot of stuff, but their parents was into selling drugs, right? So I didn't want to be like my father, the drug addict, and not have anything. And I actually went that route of selling drugs until I got caught, right? And Kobe, in my lowest state I can be, people telling me what I can do, me suffering, I was still planning on coming home and doing the same thing because in my head, that's all I knew at the time, right? Now I always read, but I read books that was going to continue to help me improve to things I wanted to do. So I read Kingpin books, I read Mafia books, I read all these other type of books that will only encourage what I wanted to do, but wasn't good, what I was suffering from. And one day, it's funny because I just I thank God for it all the time. But one day, the correctional officer threw a book on my locker. And I looked at the book, I'm wondering, I'm like, why would he throw this book on my locker? I threw it in my locker, like, okay. Me and him never had a conversation before unless he called me for mail or a visit. And when I finally ran out of stuff to read and I picked up that book, it was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And when I read that book, Kobe, it changed my way of thinking. It was other routes I could take. It was other ways to get into where I wanted to be. And I started reading all the books. Richest Man in Babylon, all Robbie Kiyosaki books, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. I'm just reading all these self-improvement books. I never picked up another hood book or mafia book, kingpin book. I was reading nothing but investment opportunity books. A lot of rich people invest in real estate. I'm reading John Maxwell. I'm reading so many different people that got me in the mindset of not coming home and actually doing the same thing, but actually changing. So that was one of the turning points in my life. So now I'm talking to this correctional officer. I'm sorry if I'm dragging it a little bit, but I started talking to this correctional officer, and even though before we didn't have a conversation, now he's telling me about different investments he's doing. He's retiring at 40. He has 7 tennis salons. So, and he came from nothing. So I knew that I can accomplish some things if I put my mind to it and seek the knowledge to do it. So I used to talk to my father on the phone, before I came home that time, and I've never been back since. It's been over 13 years, right? Um, and he told me, "You sounded different, so I wanted to be different." And he went cold turkey. Never touched a drug ever since. He got his own church. He teaching and he helping people, even people that went through the same things he went through. So it's funny how we could take our pains and make it a healing point for other people as well. So that was my first experience of the person I didn't want to be like in the very beginning. God turned that around and made him my hero. He went cold turkey. I didn't even think that was possible, right? Because, like I said, I grew up in a place where either you did one thing or you did another. It was really no quit, right? And for me to see that once you put your mind to something and to determine and put action behind it, you could accomplish anything. So that was one of my turn. And he told me I wanted to be different because you sounded so different. So when you come home, you know change is possible.
Absolutely.
And so that was one of my first time I realized what you put your mind to, you can overcome anything, right? You could accomplish anything. Another time was I got my job. I never worked a job before, right? And when everybody go on break, I follow the maintenance guy around. I do more work. I learn different stuff. I was making $9 an hour. So whenever our line went down for any mechanical, I fixed it. The mechanics never had to come to our line. They could focus on other lines. I was promoted within 90 days to 70K for salary. That's when I realized if you do more than you get paid for, eventually it's going to pay off. If it's from knowledge, experience, or it might be a paycheck in your pocket. But if you do more than you get paid for, it's eventually going to pay off. As long as you go in with intentions to be better and do better.
Yeah. I think you have, probably one of the more unique stories for, a real estate investor coming up, especially, just how you came across, the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Because I know a lot of real estate investors, that was kind of their starting point. But I'm pretty sure that was, this is for your story is one of the more unique ones that are out there, how you came across that book and how that changed your life. So, you know, talk a little bit more about, if you don't mind, just what was it that made you get into, multifamily specifically, right? Because, there's a lot of different avenues, but, you chose multifamily, you had a lot of success in the very beginning, your first 18 months, that I don't think a lot of people even have in maybe their first couple years. So, walk us through that a little bit, maybe, what your strategy was, what your mindset was, and how you were able to accomplish that.
Yes, so I heard a famous quote by Jim Rohn, and he said, "Don't buy the second house until you buy this. I mean, don't buy the second car until you buy the second house." So my goal always was to at least buy one house a year for 10 years. I have 10 houses that cash flow, and I should be able to retire. That was my mindset. And so I met a mentor, and the mentor told me, why wait 10 years to buy 10 houses when you could buy one apartment building with 10 apartments in it? And it clicked like, it makes sense. Why wait 10 years to get 10 units when I could just buy one building that got 10 units in it? So I start seeking different groups, getting into different rooms, getting around people, joining different masterminds, and just getting around people that was doing what I wanted to do, Kobe. Like I know people who came from the workspace, now they're very successful in multifamily. I know a lot of people who was in my boat, and I won't say the same story, but came from nothing. Didn't even think it was possible till they got in the right room or got around the right people and realized, man, this is possible. So once I joined different groups, got around people that were doing what I was doing, and I was showing that I was willing to do whatever it took to accomplish this. A lot of people wanted to join and partner with me and everything. So I was able to find deals which I used the Michael Jordan method, right? Michael Jordan wasn't known for how many shots he took. He was known for the ones he made. So if I could get enough deal flow, underwrite at least enough deal, at least one going to pencil out, right? So I started connecting. I started connecting with brokers, wholesalers, direct mail, any way to bring an opportunity on my desk that I could underwrite, then eventually it would pencil out. So that's what was happening. Like I was finding, I started connecting with brokers, calling wholesalers, talking to them, underwriting these deals. And I learned how to underwrite by joining mastermind, different masterminds. It's called the deal room. I'm not affiliated. I just like to, because they changed my life, right? And they taught me how to underwrite. Once I learned that skill, now it's all about just finding an opportunity and do it. So I needed to find people who had them opportunities for me, and that was brokers and wholesalers. So that's what I started with. I've started connecting with as many as I can. Like I said, eventually a few start penciling out. A lot of them wasn't, but a few started, and I started submitting offers, LOIs. We call a letter of intent. And when I submitted them LOIs, I might have submitted a lot. Every deal I underwrote, I submit an LOI, even if it don't pencil out. I send an LOI just in case the seller later on realized down the line that he might want to accept my offer now because you never know what come up with him.
Right. There's really no replacement, right, for just doing the work and getting the amount of volume in, like you did. And I think a lot of people they tried these different strategies to get new deals or get new business, but really it just comes down to, like you were saying, if you underwrite enough deals, if you analyze enough of them, make enough offers, eventually something's going to pencil out. So maybe I don't know if you remember this, but like, would you know how many deals you essentially had to make offers on or look at before the first one penciled out and actually was a success?
So I started in February. I probably didn't get my first deal accepted to mid July. So I was underwriting at least 5 or 6 deals a day. So I say it took a lot. And let me don't get me wrong, that one fell through during due diligence. My first 4 deals fell through because of due diligence. We'll find something, we'll scope the line, something was hidden or came up during due diligence that made us either have to renegotiate the price, they call it retrade, or completely just back out. And that happened my first 4 deals. And how I got full time into multifamily, I got into a car accident, Kobe. So I was working 12-hour shift, 12 hours, hour there and an hour back. So it was really 14 hours.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, God, something got to change. Something got to be different. And one day I got into a car accident, pole full fledged, fell asleep at the wheel. Tire popped off, windows, brakes, airbags exploded, everything. And I got out of the car without a scratch. But after that accident, I said, you know what? That could have been the enemy. The car was total. I mean, you no way somebody climbed out of that car without a scratch. And it was another sign for to me, it was another sign for God. You've been asking to get out of this. You've been saying you something gotta change. You have this opportunity to go full time and do it full fledged. You're not gonna do it without something dramatic. It must have been I'm not gonna do it without something dramatically changing. And it changed. And I was able to go I went full time, multifamily. Money going like this, but determination was going like this because just a few months ago, I ain't have a deal. I didn't even know what a deal was. So to be underwriting and meeting new people, connecting with new people, and actually going towards something I never knew was possible, even though things wasn't always working out. Like I said, first four deals completely went to nothing. So knowing that I was still making progress, even though I didn't cross the finish line yet, kept me going. It kept me going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for a lot of people, that's what kind of needs to happen, right? They kind of need to essentially burn the boats on the back end, right? Make sure that there's no other option than to succeed. So maybe, was that something that you think really helped you was just committing and going full time? And is this something that you're teaching other people to do as well? If they're working a 9 to 5 job, what would your suggestion be to them? Should they just go into it full time, or should they build up some sort of foundation first, or is it kind of depends on each individual and their specific situation?
I would say it depends on each individual. I would say it helped me a lot because I come from where I come from. My back was, I felt like it was always against the wall, right? So I work better in survival mode to me. So it helped me move forward and keep pushing and keep pushing. Don't get me wrong, I have family, I got kids. We moved out to Dallas from Buffalo, New York. So it's just a new beginning. And I had to, like I said, it wasn't just about me. I was feeling other people as well. So, like I said, my family, I had the other one, people back home that, like I said, didn't believe this was even possible, that cheered me on because now that they know it's possible. And like I said, when your bank account is going down, deals is falling through, it takes a different type of mindset to keep pushing. And it was a quote I heard on the Ed Milet show that kind of helped me with it, Kobe. And it was, if you was told to build a brick wall, if you was told to build a brick wall, if you would lay the brick precisely where that go, and then the next brick precisely where that go, even if you have no building skills at all, just by laying them bricks exactly where they need to go and how they need to be, eventually you're gonna have the wall. So all I did was got up every day, like you said, put in the work. I didn't let my discouragements that happen affect and let me be selfish to everyone around me. Because, like I said, I knew eventually I was gonna make that game winning shot. You know, eventually that was gonna happen. I was gonna get the deal, and it happened. It happened right after the fourth one fell through.
Yeah, and that's I think what drives a lot of people to keep pushing forward, right? That first win, so that way they know it's possible. And I don't know, was that something that you felt kind of give you more of an edge after you got your first deal under contract? And was it was turned into a success that it actually propelled you to now have more motivation to get the next deal and work twice as hard? Or was this something that you kind of just knew would happen eventually and you were just kind of moving forward the same way?
I'm gonna tell you something. It was the first time I got really, really comfortable with underwriting, and I got my first deal to underwrite sent to me. Even though I didn't have a clue how I was gonna close it, that told me it was possible. I didn't live in the results, I just stayed in the process. So that helped me a lot. Like, man, you came a long way. Like I said before, just a few months ago, you didn't even know what a deal was. Now you got all these opportunities sent to you. Now you're meeting these person you wouldn't have never thought you would be meeting in your life. And that kept me going, not the actual first deal. Because closing the deal, I'm gonna be honest with you, now that I did it, it's the easy part. It's executing that business plan when it becomes a lot more harder and you stand on track and really, because underwriting the deal just off projections or what you think, that's one thing. But executing it is a whole nother level. So I will say it wasn't the actual first deal that kept me going. It was actually knowing that I actually know what I'm talking about. I actually know what I'm doing.
Right. It's the confidence, right? It's like having a little bit more confidence to actually go out there and get things done, right? And continue with the progress. And with every deal that you're underwriting, if you're writing, such amount of deals, then you're only going to get better at it, right? I think what people need to understand is, even if, your first 100 or 200 or 300 deals are not successful, what you're doing is you're practicing, right? You're getting experience and you're learning from them. And I think you can probably attest to that is that was a lot of that process, right? And that's kind of what attributed to your success in the first year and even, moving forward from that.
It had a whole lot to do with it. I 100% agree with you on that. And like I said, I thank God because if it wasn't for him, I know I would have never, you know, I would never be where I'm at today. I would have never got that book. Even in my worst suffering state, I would still have the same mindset. But he said, here, that CEO could have threw that book on anybody locker. We didn't have no conversations, but he threw it on mine. You know, like I thank God, because we wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Right. Yeah. It's funny how, sometimes your life can just change in that instant, right? Just you never know what's gonna come your way, and taking advantage of that opportunity, you really leaned fully into it when you first took advantage of that, right? You started reading all kinds of different books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, all kinds of books to help you improve and change your mindset. So, did you find any? I guess like, do you find any struggle in that as far as the change process goes? Or were you just fully into it and there wasn't any?
Oh no, it definitely had some struggles and some discouragement because, like I said, my first goal was to get one house a year, and I bought two houses that first year. But one, as soon as I bought it, burned down to the ground. I bought it from the auction. I paid $7,500 for both. One of them burned right down to the ground. Not even a week later after we bought it. So that was very discouraging. Like, is this really even possible? Is I is if I'm am I built for this? Right? And it took years for me to actually start looking more into it. I was just working that 9 to 5. Well, I say 12 to 12. I was just working that shift, still in the rat race, you know. And it wasn't until I decided to jump back into it, get over what I went through, that I met my mentor, and I met him looking at single family, and we did a few deals together. But it wasn't until I met him when he helped me with my mindset, helped me look at things differently. That's why it's so important that we get around people who's doing more than what we doing or want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's again something I think it's almost irreplaceable, right? It's finding that, those individuals sort of done things that you wanted to do, and taking from their experience, right? Learning from the mistakes that they made so that you don't make them as much as they did, right? And that way you can succeed faster. So maybe talk a little bit about that. So were you actively seeking out a mentor at that time, or is this just somebody that kind of came across your life and then you just realized, wow, this is now a mentor-mentee relationship?
So no, I wasn't seeking a mentor. I did not know the power of mentors until I met them. But the way me and him met each other is I was looking for a private lender,
Mhm.
and somebody actually told me he lent private money, and I'm like, okay. So they gave me his contact information and everything, and I just sent him like a short info like, hey, we both from Buffalo, New York. I buy single family properties. I heard you invest in things and individuals like myself and property like myself. If this is something that may interest you, I would love to introduce who I am what my plans are and see if that's something you want to be a part of. And he said, sure, send it my way. And my first deal, he said, listen, when I talked to him on the phone after we had a conversation, he said, if you, I asked him, like, man, he was flipping like 20, 30 houses a month. And I'm like, would you be my mentor? And he said, listen, bring me one opportunity that we and you can do together, and I'll be your mentor. You know, I found the opportunity not even a week later, brought it to his attention. That deal fell through because he took longer to send me the purchase and sell agreement to send to the seller, and somebody else ended up coming and sending it right away. But he said, I like your style. I like our conversations, and I wouldn't mind mentoring you. And he
Yeah.
became my mentor.
It's almost all about like taking advantage of the opportunity, right? When you have somebody like that, right? And you took full advantage of that when you just leaned right in and you were like, yeah, absolutely. Let me bring you a deal right now and let's see what we can do together. So, for a lot of people I think that are looking for a mentor, they don't really realize that in order for a mentor to want to take you on, you have to, you know, give back some type of value, right? Give back some type of, it could be just, willingness to learn, willingness to work, or it could be some type of actual value, right? Like working for free or, bring them opportunities that they wouldn't have in the past. Especially I think as an investor, that's a big one, right? Wouldn't you say so? Is, being able to bring deals to uh a more experienced investors because, they have more experience, but don't necessarily have as much time to dedicate to it as maybe a newer investor.
I would say that is so true. That was one of my ways of getting in. If I bring them this opportunity, and it's a great opportunity, that's my way in the door because I ain't have the funds. I couldn't sign on the debt.
Mm.
So you need to bring in partners that can do that. So I know I needed to be on my game, learn what I needed to learn. And I've learned by doing. Yeah, I have mentors. Yeah, I study. But you learn the best experience is by doing. So I just put in the work. My first deal, I never raised capital before. Like I did send my mentor that. Yeah, he said he'd be willing to put up the money and blah blah blah, right? But I never actually, and they might consider that raised capital because he did put up the money before on deals that we did together. But actually raising capital myself, I'm talking about six figures. I raised 950K my first deal. I did it in 2 weeks. But I talked to 76 people, Kobe. I got I got 5 partners on that deal. I got 71 no's.
Yeah.
So it was all about just believing in it, believing in what you got going on, and trusting the process. A lot of people were telling me, yeah, it just wasn't the right time. I mean, no, it just wasn't the right time for them. But I still got great relationships with them now. So on my next deal, guess what? They came in. I could have just got discouraged and not continue. We're talking about 70 something people in 2 weeks. Talking about long days and nights.
Yeah.
It
And
was worth it.
that's a great point that you brought up right there is you stayed in contact with them, even though they told you no the first time, right? You kept in contact because you knew these are potential investors that were, possibly going to invest in your next deal or the next deal and so on and so forth. And I think a lot of people who are a little bit more short-sighted, they might just see a no and then they never talk to this person again until, maybe another deal comes across the table and then they reach back out to them and then they're like, well, you haven't even talked to me, right? They forgot who this person even was. And that's not the right way to do business. So, I'm glad you brought that point up because I think, for a lot of especially newer investors who are more intimidated in getting, I would say, multifamily is because they're not used to raising as much capital or any raising any capital, right? Maybe they're flippers that use hard money lenders or they use their own money, but when you're getting into some of these bigger properties, you do need capital partners. So me walk us through that process of, obviously you call 76 people and, you were persistent there, but what is your kind of your capital raising process? What does that look like now? Or you just have, you know, continue to make connections and you're maintaining them a certain way through a CRM, or are you, what does the process look like now as far as, maintaining capital partners for your multifamily business?
So I got them in a spreadsheet. Everybody I talk to, I put them in a spreadsheet when we talk, what we talked about, right? And most of them, almost everybody is potential investors, regardless of what, right? Just
Mhm.
never know. So I treat it as such. Don't get me wrong. I treat our relationship more than I treat the actual capital that they can bring, because I'm usually adding more value. When I say adding more value, even if I don't got a deal at the moment, I'm constantly posting content. I'm constantly feeding them information that can only help them grow or get better at whatever it is they doing or whatever I am doing. And I'm constantly showing them that I'm actually putting in the work. I'm not on the sideline just talking about it. I'm in the field doing it. So whenever I have an opportunity, I usually send it right to them now. So that's 71 calls. These people I have talked to before, deals fell out, right? And they always say, hey, just hit me up on the next one. So once you do it, it might be bad timing, it might not be the right time, or they might have invested in another deal somewhere else. But I was determined. I had to think I got like 1,000 contacts. I was determined to call each one of them one by one until I had enough funds. So it's a and talk to new ones if need be, because consistency beat out anything, I believe.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to stay consistent, talk to enough people. Another thing I look at it now. If I got no's and I don't raise the capital, I just ain't talked to enough people. So I'm always looking to connect. I probably talk to 2 new people a week, 10 new people a week. I'm sorry. It's about 2 people a day. So I'm constantly trying to build up new connections through social media platforms and things of that nature.
Yeah. And that's what people need to be doing, right? And it's something that I don't think a lot of people realize again is, just putting in the amount of reps into getting what you want to get, right? So a lot of people think, if you call one person with the perfect script and if you say the perfect thing, you should just get a one hit wonder, or you should just get your hit in your first call. But it never works like that, right? If you're not getting hits, right? If you're not getting deals, if you're not getting lenders, right? If you're not getting what you want, then you're just not putting in enough of the work. That's usually, I would say, um, the most common problem people have is that they think they're doing more than they're actually doing.
For sure. And it's a saying, the guy who was digging for gold, he stopped what 3 inches before he struck, and then someone who came right under him right behind him, and they ended up striking gold. So it's just about doing it one more day, doing another day, doing one more. Looking at it as in a day format instead of in long term and thinking about the results. Just looking at tomorrow. If we make it so simple, like tomorrow, I'm just going to make another few calls. I'm going to underwrite another few deals. And fires people, and I wanted to come back to this, fires people who work in a 9 to 5 is nothing with working on your living, long as you working on your fortune at the same time. That's a famous quote by Jim Rohn. And yeah, you could work to take care of your living, but long as you put in something towards your fortune. So yeah, you work 9 to 5, find an hour a day to put towards your fortune. If you make $1,000, maybe you got to put a lot less towards your fortune, but put something away, put some time away towards your future, towards your fortune. Yeah, you can work in 9 to 5, but make sure you're doing something towards your fortune.
If you don't start, you're never going to get where you want, right? So even if you, like we were just saying, even if you have to save just a dollar, right, or a cent, right, or just a little bit, like you said, an hour, maybe an hour a day, right, maybe just a couple hours a week towards building your fortune, like you're talking about. You have to start somewhere, right, and then once you start and you stay consistent, then eventually there's going to get bigger and bigger so that you can take more time, devote more energy towards it. But you don't get to that point unless you start. So I think that's a big part for or a big hurdle for a lot of people is starting, which is kind of leads to a something I really want to get your take on, which is if you're obviously coaching a lot of people as far as starting out in multifamily investing, so what would you see is probably like the biggest hurdle that they have into, really launch padding into their success? And kind of what advice would you give them if they're just a brand new investor, haven't really touched real estate before, and they want to, kind of do what you do and getting into multifamily investing?
I will say start with mindset, right? That's one thing. I like to because it's not going to be easy. It could be simple steps, but that's simple steps that you're going to take on a daily, like we just discussed, to keep the game momentum, right? We need to continue to do it. So it will start with mindset. Don't look at the outcome, look at the process. Lay that brick precisely where it needs to go, and then lay the next one right next to it and keep doing it until you got that eventually got that wall. So it's not going to be overnight. You might not never get it, but consistency beats out everything. So you got a better chance of getting it by staying consistent. And like I said, attach it something to something bigger. For me, what's bigger for me, not only is it my family, but it's people, like I said, where I didn't think it was possible. I don't want to say I'm lucky. It's just that I just came across information that they didn't. I'm not lucky. I just happened because anybody could have got that book, but that don't mean they would have read it. They read the next one, put in the work. Took years to get to where I'm at today. And but it's about putting in the work and getting around people. I can't put the emphasis on this enough. Getting around people who is doing what you want to do because you're going to start to borrow their beliefs. So consistency, getting in the right rooms and putting in the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, right? If you don't quit, it's really hard to lose, right? You can't,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you just keep going, right? If you just keep going, then because really you have nothing to lose at that point, right? Why would anybody stop going for their dreams and their goals, right? Nobody's like you were saying, like nobody is forcing you to do it full time, right? If you just devote a little bit of time into it, um, you know, just stay consistent, and I absolutely agree with that. Is that consistency is the key, and it beats out everything else as far as getting to your success and building your fortune and moving forward. So I love that. And Phil, I want to thank you, man, for being on the show today. I want to thank you for sharing your value with us, sharing your story. For anybody who wants to follow you or who wants to, kind of get coached by you, get mentored by you, just follow your journey. What are some of the best places that they can find you? And what are some things that you think are best for people to follow you on?
Yes, so I'm on all social media platforms. On Facebook, it's just Phil Brooks. That's my name, Phil Brooks. On IG, Instagram is I'm Phil Brooks. That's IMPHILBROOKS. I'm on LinkedIn as I'm Phil Brooks on LinkedIn as well. So just reach out anytime. I answer my own inboxes, and they VA or anything. I answer all my messages. I try to get back to you the best time I can, but I'm here to help. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I had help, if I wasn't able to reach out to people. So I want to be that same step and ladder. And the one thing about real estate that I learned is you could have one arm reaching up and someone pulling you up, but the other arm can be reaching down, pulling up the next person. So that's what I'm all about. That's what I'm here to do. And reach out to me if y'all want to, if I can help.
Absolutely. We'll make sure to leave those links in the show notes and the description down below. Phil, I want to thank you again for being on the show today. Really enjoyed our conversation. And before we let you go here, any last pieces of advice, last tips you want to leave with us today?
Yes, and that will be stay consistent, get in the right rooms, and put in the work.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you, Phil, and I appreciate you for tuning in. And we will see you on the next show. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.